You've had Wendy's nugs dipped in sauce, but have you had them covered in sauce? Wendy's new saucy nugs take the crispy and spicy nugs you love and turn them up to 11. Choose between flavors like buffalo or honey barbecue, garlic parm, or if you're a real heat seeker out there, you can try spicy ghost pepper, only on Wendy's signature spicy nugs. Listen, I'm going to dare you to do it. I dare you. That's 7 delicious ways to try the nugs that you already love. Pick a flavor, grab some extra napkins, and then grab a few more napkins and prepare to nug like you've never nugged before. For a whole new way to nug, it's got to be Wendy's at participating U.S. Wendy's.
What's up, Cal fans? We are back with another episode of the California Golden Bearcast, proud partner of the Blue Wire Podcast Network. It is Monday for those of you that have been blowing us up about the Thursday pods. This should be releasing earlier because it is a Monday. And if not, oh well.
Just an oh well. It's so anticlimactic. So anticlimactic.
My name is Andy. That guy laughing over there is Rob. We are somehow here after a rather demoralizing sports weekend. Even for you. I believe your Chargers lost.
Well, yeah, we also lost our starting left tackle, our starting right tackle, and our starting quarterback. So, you know.
That's it?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, well, I won't even talk about the Niners game. That was one of the worst losses. The Cal game, I was like, okay, I can get over that. The Niners game.
The way the Niners lost, too, is like, it's just as demoralizing as how the Cal team lost.
It felt like we lost the same way we've lost every big game. Anyways, we're not here to talk about that. We are here to talk about our mighty Golden Bears, who went down to Florida State and outplayed the Seminoles for, I would say, the second half.
Yeah, I'd agree.
And then we lost.
Yeah. We basically outplayed them in every facet of the game and still found a way to lose.
Yes, we did. Okay, perfect. So we are going to use this moment to launch right into instant reaction, overreaction. Rob, I'm going to turn it over to you. I have a bunch of things. The segment's going to be long. Just going to tell the audience. It's going to be long. I have a lot that I want to talk about here because I did something I don't normally do, which is I read the comment section on the instant reaction on the Right for California site. I don't normally do that. I try to consume the game and then let my self-formed thoughts come on here, and then I'll read them after.
Mm-hmm.
I did it opposite.
Okay.
Where were you at? I want to know. You had people over at your house.
Yeah.
Set the scene a little bit, and then I want to know the mood. I want to know your mood, because when you walked into Doke Beer, you looked like you had seen the ghost. Oh, I was going to say an old coach, but I just completely blanked. But all the ghosts at the same time of past Cal coaches.
So yeah, I had Avi, Nam, and Trace were over at my place watching the game. Nam, Avi, and I went and got Mendoza burritos before the game. Went to Rally's, got a beer before the game. Came home and watched the game. And I think for most of the game, everyone there, maybe not Avi, I'll have to check in with Avi, but I think for the most part, Trace, myself, Nam, we're like, this is winnable. I feel like it's in the cards. Like we kind of deserve a touchdown just for how we played. And that's kind of the vibe you like went with all game, like from beginning to end. You're like, oh, okay, we're in this. Like as the game started, you know, the way you got the 3 and outs and then so on. And DJU not really being good by any standards. and they're starting running back Roydell Williams being out, both of their tackles being out, just a bunch of folks. So it was just like one of those things where I was like, all of us were like, yeah. We never lost faith in the team, but then the game ends, and then everyone just sits there just for a couple seconds, and then they're like, all right, well, all right, time to go home. Like Nam, like, thanks my mom. She's like, thanks for having us. Trace is like, thanks for having us, and then just walk out the door. I go downstairs. I drive Nam home. Then Avi and I drop by where you were at Tokyo Beer. Trace goes home, and that's kind of the night. But
why is that? Why is it to our friend down in Australia who just picked up the Cal fandom this season? Why is that mood that somber
or so familiar?
Or yeah, I'm curious.
I think it's like no one's mad with these results anymore. I guess maybe some people are mad, but for most of us, it's like we're not mad at these situations anymore because we've done it and we've been here before. I think the apt emotion is disappointment. The disappointment that we couldn't rise to the occasion and for the nth time. Like we took control of the Cal or the college football zeitgeist on Twitter. Like we became the love of so many national people and random fans just because of how much fun we were having, like, and non-toxic fun that we were having via the memes and the jokes, and everyone was rooting for us. And then we put on that type of showing, that's how we lose. It's just absolutely disappointing. So that's more of what the feeling was. It was just the absolute disappointment of, like, again, but then we laugh because it's like it's part of our history. Like it's part of how it is as a Cal fan that you're gonna go through these types of situations. Like we hope that the universe aligns itself to allow us joy with football success at a level unknown to most of us. But the reality is that we're not given those happinesses at the end. But like hope springs anew for that every single week and every single season, right? And that's the beauty of what a Cal fan is. But that's not to say it doesn't suck in the moment. So those 24 hours after the game was just like, man, I was in the gutter. Like I was so emotionally drained. Sunday morning, I was emotionally drained. Just zoning out. But I mean, I'm over it now. Because I think that's the beauty also of having gone through this so much. You get over it quicker. You can only go through so many heartbreaks before it becomes normalized to you. And that's kind of where we landed after this game. But what about you? I mean, we're going to go over the game and other stuff later, but just the instant reactions of this.
Well, I will come back to that at the end of this answer. I think what you just touched on is very interesting because as the outsider from the Twitter universe, I think I'm not as close to that. So I don't feel that same level of attachment. And in the sense of maybe the social commotion of the entire thing built this game up to be something more than it really ought to have ever been. And what I mean by that is you and Trace and I all sat on a preseason pod, and I'm pretty sure, and we talked about this, I'm not 100% sure, but I'm like 95% sure all three of us called this game a loss.
Yeah.
And all I can think about when you were talking is the Ted Lasso title of the episode. It's the hope that kills you.
Yep.
But I do think it's important to reset, and this will be something I want to talk about later, is when we talk about expectation and reaction. You were the one that said that this season is broken down by segments of 4.
Mm-hmm.
and we went 3-1 in our first 4, which at the time we take 10 out of 10 times in the preseason pod. After watching Auburn play a couple of football games, maybe 3-1 is the prediction that all of us should have had.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still early.
Yep.
And so I think that my reaction, because I promised you I'd bring it back, I'd bring it home.
Yep.
My reaction was more of the world's not falling through. I don't personally think this cost Cal everything. I think the ACC is wide open. I don't see an undefeated team in the ACC. So there's still a shot at getting to the championship. And for those that want to dream, there's still a shot at getting to the playoff as a conference champion. There's less margin for error, but if you're me and you're looking at 8 wins, you're looking at 3-1. Oh, and you're saying, okay, you can do this. But I will say that doesn't take into account how tough the schedule looks now over the next 4 weeks. This middle segment looks a lot harder with Pitt being undefeated, Miami being a top 10 team, and forget
Oregon State.
In NC State?
Oregon State.
When's NC State?
I think the week after.
So that's our 4 in this segment.
Yeah.
So you're probably looking at saying 2-2. So it would be 5-3.
Yeah.
Still great. 5-3 with
still on pace.
Syracuse, Stanford, SMU, and who am I missing? Wake Forest.
Yeah.
I mean, dude, the beginning of the year, I would take that. No way I wouldn't take that. You have a realistic shot at 9 wins. Your expectations are you're probably getting 8.
Yeah.
And that's going to hurt like hell to go through that journey because it
Without
always
context.
does.
Yeah.
500 is always painful. Always. But if we were in that spot, and then if you flip it, you go 3-1 again, so you flip it on, I really think Cristobal has a bad issue losing to teams like our team. And that's why I chose the Miami game as a win preseason, because I've never felt that Cristobal is the coach that he's like Sark to me, except not Texas version of Sark.
Yeah, you're thinking
the Washington version of Sark, where he'd always have the great teams, but there'd be one loss that'd be inexplicable. And he did it at Oregon, and he's done it so far at Miami. Obviously, last year was a little bit more national news in that they could have just
taken the knee. Yeah, they could have taken the knee, but they ran.
That's why I still remain pretty optimistic. I don't think the algorithm is going to go away. There will be more opportunities for that fun to happen because of the fact that we are getting more coverage.
Yeah.
In the ACC than I think we were getting in the Pac-12 nationally. And honestly, like the death of the Pac-12 network has been fantastic for us. Fantastic. These games being recorded on YouTube TV. I mean, that's a whole other subject. So that's where I'm at. I mean, we lost the game. There's a ton of stuff that we'll go into later as far as questions and curious moments that I think deserve to be talked about. But I didn't walk away from it feeling like, maybe last year you'd feel really, if it was a top 4 team that was going to make the college football playoff, then you're saying, okay, everything is over. And that's what was the joke that I made a couple of weeks ago, which is it was ridiculous. We used to watch a sport where if you had one loss, you wrote off your season and packed your bags and said, okay, cool, I can't compete for a championship. But in this new era, nothing has substantially changed for me other than the highest of high dreams that we were going to go 4-0 into a Miami game. That always sort of seemed like a challenge. And, from watching the game, we were basically there were a couple of arm tackles. One, Mendoza on the outside. There's another one that Jet got tackled on when it looked like he had daylight in front of him. And there's a couple of just arm tackles that happened to go against us that pulled us away from winning this game. I don't know. As I said, it's a lot of travel. I'm not surprised that we couldn't score a touchdown and couldn't execute flying as many miles as we've done. And I know you're like, you travel more than the team, but it's a long way to go, especially having just gone to Auburn.
What's up, everybody? It's Heisman Trophy winner Matt Leinart. I've got a podcast called Throwbacks with actor Jerry Ferrar where we'll be talking all things sports, but also so much more. We'll give you the behind-the-scenes stories from my days as the quarterback on an iconic college football team to Jerry's days as a star on an iconic TV series. So subscribe to Throwbacks wherever you download your podcast and follow us on all social media at Throwback Show.
The journey to a smoke-free future can be a long and winding road, but if you're ready for a change, consider taking Zyn for a spin. Zyn nicotine pouches offer a fresh way to discover your nicotine satisfaction. Anywhere, anytime. No smoke, no spit, and no lingering odor. Get in gear with the Zyn 10 Challenge and enjoy 10 smoke-free, spit-free days for just $5.95. Order online and start your new journey today. Warning, this product contains nicotine. Nicotine is an addictive chemical.
That was your instant reaction. Do you have any overreactions from the game, or is that kind of your overreaction as well?
Well, I just went on a long monologue, so I'll take this opportunity to go on another one. As I was reading the instant reaction comments, one of the comments that came out from the same people that I've seen for the last 5 years on the blog, writing the same things, were that Wilcox should be fired, he's never going to win these games, and that the world is on fire, and this was doom from the beginning. And there were a couple of kind people in there that took their time to respond to those comments and essentially say, it's early, rise above it, rebound and move on. But for me, and I know we talked about this a little bit, I just am so tired of this. I'm so tired of it. And it's not because it's not plausible. It's more because it doesn't serve anybody. It's not constructive. It's not helpful. It's not solutions oriented. It's just, it is the easiest thing that you can go to. And while I can understand where the frustration comes from, because there is thematically similarities between some of these losses where people can say typical or the same old Cal, or why did I have my hopes up? Knew this was going to happen. But at the end of the day, nobody knew that this was going to happen. And the game script in this game, to me, from an athletic standpoint, Cal and Florida State, I haven't seen a Cal defensive line perform that well against a Pac-12 top tier recruit school offensive line from a pressure standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
McCullough was back there. Carlton played an amazing game. I think I might be even spoiling my future defensive player pick. There were just and so I think that when we talk about overreaction, anyone calling for Wilcox to be fired or saying that this regime will never be successful, I am more ready to fire that person. It just isn't. It isn't founded in reality. It isn't grounded in reality. We're 3-1. 3-1. 4 games into the season. And everyone keeps talking about O-line and Blesh not being able to coach O-line versus the offense at the same time, which we'll talk about. Or that Wilcox, I mean, it's 4 games, people. 4 games. The first quarter of the season. 4 games. Most of our O-lines of the past have never gelled until like the mid-season point. The penalties, all of those things will get cleaned up. 100%. The pass protection will get cleaned up. It's just early, and you have to figure that out. We're mixing in guys. People are getting hurt. Vadakani's getting carted off the field. You have a constant rotation on the O-line. And this team is built behind the O-line, as we said. I just don't get it. I don't understand it. We are blessed to have a coach like Wilcox have stuck around with this program through thick and real thin over the last few years. And I understand that we haven't broken the proverbial glass ceiling, but don't you dare take the season in which we have the best opportunity to do so and ruin it by calling for somebody's job after their first loss in the entire season. Because if we end up going back out of this bye week and beating Miami at home, there's going to be a bunch of people that need to eat crow publicly, and I guarantee you they won't do that.
I mean, I'm going to piggyback off of what you said. And for me, this is the end all. Why would you want to root against your own team? Right? If your MO is that you want Wilcox fired, that means that you're rooting for him to lose the rest of the season so that you can get your goal of having a new head coach going into next year. I'm just not that type of fan, and I don't think most fans are. If you're given the choice of two things as a fan, right? A head coach that you do not like, getting to prove you right that he's not the worthy head coach of your team and losing out and getting fired, or proving you wrong and getting you a substantial amount of wins to have a great season in any sport, right? I think most people would choose the latter. No, you're not a fan of the team if you're that vindictive to want to throw an entire season just to get a single guy fired. And so, like, I mean, look, we live in a free country. If that's how you want to live your fandom, go for it. But I would much rather be proved wrong than proved right in that situation. So that's my thing on that.
I think we've talked about it on here a little bit, but this idea that I think we live in a world, and particularly online, where there is social currency behind the concept of being first to do something.
Yep.
And I've noticed this with the Giants, where Dieter Kurtenbach, I'll call him out because he's actually a professional writer, has been trying to jump the gun earlier before anybody else, essentially saying that the season was over and that our GM needed to be fired. And I think that what I've talked about is that there's no accountability if you're wrong.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. And then we forget that there's like legitimate people, players, families, like it's just bigger than what these comments are. And I think that like there was one comment in there that really stood out to me. Somebody made was like, you've clearly never played team sports in your entire life if this is your opinion on this. And I'm sure a lot of the people have played team sports that are commenting on those threads. And I'm sure there are people out there that are making the comments around firing your head coach that have played team sports and understand the value of teamwork. But I bet I do agree with that when you are an athlete and you are somebody that looks at these things, you're not going back and resorting to, okay, like I'm the second that I hit adversity, I'm going to cut the top person down in my program. It's just not how you're wired. You look more towards yourself, and then I think you project outwards to try and shift and change and get better. And like that's what competition is about. But in this era of this, in this concept of being first, what I see is the same people that 4 years ago, even though last season, Wilcox, honestly, in my mind, proved a ton of people wrong already. Like the end of last season proved a ton of people wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And yet here we are, the same people coming out, I was right. I've been saying this for years. Who cares? I agree with you, Rob. Like, You've been feeling this way for years. Fine, you might be out or not believe that your personal ceiling that somebody can get to. You may think that is impossible for the person in that position, and therefore not surprised when that outcome presents itself, which is fine. But I think it's totally different than being like, told you, been saying this for years. This will never happen. Just another typical. Like, why do you think the program is spending so much time and effort getting rid of the typical inside of the building? And how are we helping anybody by perpetuating that outside of the building? I didn't say anything like typical. I didn't say anything like, oh, here we go again. Ultimately, I looked at that loss and I said, oh, well, it was on the road on the East Coast. We're 3-1. We have Miami coming in after a bye week. My biggest question is, how does Blesh adjust so that we can be more successful in the first half? And then obviously there's a couple of areas that we'll talk to in the second part of this podcast. They're going to be more specific to, what can we execute better against? But like, we had a chance to win that game. We didn't win the game. Literally, that's sports. And if you don't understand that, then I don't think you've actually played competitive sports.
I mean, we're 6-1 in our last regular season games. Last 7 regular season games were 6-1. I'll take that.
I mean, Fernando looks like a dude. I just think there's a lot to like. Dyches looked amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And Isaiah Hunter is awesome.
Yeah.
Mason Starling looks like
he looks
like
healthy.
The
He finally
college
looks
version
healthy
of Juwan Jennings.
Yeah.
Just a big-bodied target that we haven't had. Tron reminded everybody of how good his hands are, and really, Jaden looked healthy for the first time all season and broke off a couple of runs. There's so much on the offensive side of the football that we can get better at, and that's with a patchwork offensive line and a couple of wide receivers that are down. Then if you go on the defensive side, I mean, I think there was a couple of 3rd and long situations that didn't, you would, if you could have them back, but like DJU, for how bad his stat line was, still reminded me of the DJU that I'd seen in the past, where he looks completely out on a play and makes a throw, and you're like, that was a damn good throw. And if he doesn't hit that receiver on the touchdown in stride, the DB catches up to that ball. The ball was perfectly placed. There was a great deep ball. There's another one was like 3rd and long. He put it through 2 Cal defenders, and if he misses on that by a foot, it's intercepted on either side of the ball. And he did it, and they converted. And those are plays that just, players make plays. Like, big-time players make big plays in big moments. That his stat line is not great, but sometimes you just got to tip your cat. You can tip your cat if you want to tip them a couple dollars. You can tip your hat and just move on. Because I guarantee you that nobody in the inside of that building is looking at this as some sort of indictment into a trend or past history of what Cal is all about.
I mean, there's a couple things that I can hit on what you said. I'll start with that last thing you just mentioned. The moment you play a game close to a team that has the level of athleticism and the talent level that Florida State has, you're giving them a chance at all times to get back in. That's the reason I'm upset we couldn't score touchdowns, because I felt like if we went up a touchdown or 2, the pressure from where they were in the season at 0-3, I think would have crumbled them. But the fact that we were constantly within striking distance just meant that their talent at some point was just going to we couldn't constantly rely on their talent not playing up to par. There was going to be a moment where that talent level rose above the occasion, even if it's for a single play. And that's exactly what happened on that second touchdown drive. Mm-hmm. That throw on that slot fade by DJU was exactly that. Terrible game, but that's an NFL quarterback throw, even though he only made 1. But that was it. And that's what won them the game, because we kept it close. There's no one else to put the blame on for this loss except for us. Like, we were the ones that were bad. We dominated the game between the 20s, but we just could not score to save our life. And that's that's where we ended. Some of the things you were talking about, and the players coming back in the offensive line, like, are we going straight into that stuff now? Are we transitioning into that conversation? Because I got a lot to say. But if you do want to transition, I'll say one last thing before we make that transition. I did tweet this out yesterday, I believe. The thing for me that I want to see after this type of game, whether we had won this game or lost, was always going to be how we come out against Miami. Because if we had won yesterday, right? Let's take the hypothetical. I want to see how we could take that hype and build on it instead of falling flat on our face against a top-ranked team coming into our house off a bye week. Now, but the reality of now is that we lost that game. Now, I think in prior years with the narrative of and plot of every season regarding Cal, particularly under the Justin Wilcox regime, this is usually started like a slide, right? It usually starts like a 2 to 3 game losing slide. If Nando and what Cade is saying in those press conferences are right, where we want to change the culture, we want to change that narrative, like none of that typical shit, like just, if they're for real about that, then I want to see how they come out against Miami. Like, I want to see how they play against a better opponent than the one they just barely lost to. A lot better of an opponent. And if you can change the momentum in that, then I will fully believe that we've grown out of that trend and the thematic things that we see after this type of loss. So that's my thing. That's what I'm kind of like looking forward to. And that's kind of where I was like 24 hours after the game. So I want to see how they respond. Because you get 2 weeks to change that response and that emotion. Are you going to come out hungry? Are you going to hit the ground running? Are you going to be excited to play back at home and deliver a complete game in front of your fans? That is what I want to see over the next couple of weeks.
It's scary to expect that much on something that we have historically struggled with.
Yeah, it is
a lot.
It is.
And I think the coming out of the bye week has been such a key frustration, but it was a frustration with Musgrave and Wilcox, not Blesh. And that's why I said that earlier on is I think I'm looking at that the same way, but I'm still expecting a loss because I think it's not like overwhelmingly expecting a loss, but I'm still expecting that we will go 3-2, maybe 3-3. The thing is that Wilcox is really good at is when you get into the storm, as he likes to call it, he lets people know where they're at and how to get out of it. And I think that is the key. Every season we've had this where we will go through and have some sort of slide. But yeah, if we get out of that, the best thing that you can rest your laurels on coming out of the FSU game is that from a talent level, the disparity, while certainly there in some pockets, was not overwhelming. And it wasn't overwhelming in the way it was and we used to see against SC. And it wasn't the same, it wasn't the same way that we used to see against Oregon. It was, we were right there. And we won in the trenches. We lost in the trenches, but I wouldn't chalk up a win to either side. I think that is new for us, largely.